In early September, as the Jerusalem Post reported, the Israeli Finance Minister Ben-Gvir announced that he plans to designate the Gaza Summit Flotilla, which is this flotilla, and its activists as terrorists and to seize the boats. And he said, quote, under the new suggested directive, all activists arrested in connection with the flotilla will be detained in Israel's Ketzoit and Diamond prisons, which are used to hold terrorists under stringent conditions typically reserved for security prisoners. The activists will be held in prolonged detention, unlike the previous practice of releasing detainees after brief overnight stays. Activists will be denied special privileges such as television, radio, and specialized food in an effort to impose a clear message that supporting terrorism will not be tolerated. Quote, we will not allow individuals who support terrorism to live in comfort. They will face the full consequences of their actions. I really am at a loss to understand how anyone can support the notion that people trying to deliver food and humanitarian aid and medicine to people who are deprived of it can, with a straight face, be defined as terrorists, no matter what you think of their mission, no matter how much you might love Israel. I mean, terrorism used to have a meaning beyond just opposing the United States and Israel. Actually, it never really did have a meaning beyond that. That's always what it has meant. But the more it becomes transparent that that's what it means, the better. These are people who, by definition, are not using violence of any kind, which used to be kind of fundamental to how people understood the word terrorism. Threatening or using violence against civilians for political ends. These people are not doing that. Israel is doing that. But that was Ben-Gvir's announcement that he's not the finance minister, he's the director of internal security, national security, or the minister of national security for Israel. Smotrich is the finance minister who's as much of a fanatic. But that is Ben-Gvir's idea was, look, we're going to treat you as terrorists. And those two prisons he referenced, which are really more like dungeons, they're not really prisons. Prisons are for people who are put through the court system, charged with crimes, convicted of crimes, and then sentenced to prison. These are really dungeons. These are filled with Palestinians who have never been charged with any crime. They're just kidnapped off the street. They're really more the hostages than, say, IDF soldiers in Gaza. I think you could certainly say Israeli civilians in Gaza are hostages, but IDF soldiers who were picked up on October 7th fighting in tanks and uniform, who were picked up and taken, those are usually prisoners of war. Hostages are the people held in these dungeons with no due process, no charges of any kind. And these prisons are notorious for starving people, for deliberately subjecting them to illness, putting them in filth. Many are malnourished, many come out emaciated, dehydrated, and some die in prison. Young people who die in these Israeli dungeons of hunger. And these were the facilities that Ben-Gvir was threatening to put these people in as terrorists. CBS News, October 2nd, the Gaza Flotilla activist boats are intercepted by Israeli forces dozens of miles from the Gaza coast. So it was in international waters. It didn't even penetrate the blockade, but obviously the Israelis were going to do it. And eventually they picked up every ship. Some ships got closer than they thought. They could actually see Gaza, which, for activists coming from around the world was something emotionally affecting, kind of a victory. They felt a greater connection with the people to whom they're trying to deliver food and humanitarian aid and just general relief. And these boats are filled with elected members of various parliaments in the West and throughout the world, with journalists, with well-known activists throughout the West. And yet, they were all detained, they were all arrested. Ben-Gvir arrived where they were being held once they were arrested. And he basically ordered the Israeli military and the police to treat them abusively, to treat them on purpose with psychological humiliation and torture, to deprive them of the basic amounts of food and water that prisoners in civilized countries are entitled to get, to treat them as terrorists, as he promised to do. That's basically what they did. Hear from CNN yesterday, returning Gaza Flotilla activist claim jail mistreatment in Israel and fear for remaining prisoners. Quote, 21 of the former detainees landed at Madrid airport on Sunday and were seen hugging relieved relatives and supporters in a video published by news agency Reuters. They were among some 450 activists, including climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, arrested last week aboard the global Summit Flotilla, a coalition of more than 40 humanitarian aid vessels carrying food, water, and medicine toward Gaza. Those detained between Wednesday and Friday were brought to Israel, where many remain in prison. Gareti Sarisbar, among activists deported from Tel Aviv on Sunday, told Reuters that after being released from their cells, they were forced to watch images of the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel, when militants killed 1,200 Israelis and took 250 hostages. Quote, they didn't give us food all day, he said, adding, quote, now we are super happy eating as we were starving. Dutch activist Marco Tasch recounted being unable to breathe at one point, quote, because they put something to my face and they tied my hands to my back. Fellow deportee Rafael Borrego showed the handcuff marks on his wrists and described the jail conditions. Quote, at any time that any of us called a police officer, we risked that 7 or more fully armed people entered our cell, as they did on mine, pointing us with weapons at our heads, with dogs ready to attack us, and being dragged to the floor, he told Reuters. This happened on a daily basis. I don't know if you recall, viewers of the show recall, but we interviewed an American journalist, Jeremy Lafredo, who does work for various media outlets, and he has done some great work documenting interviews he conducts with Israelis in the West Bank, with Israeli settlers to show their mentality. And this was after the first exchange with Iran of ballistic missiles, not the one that the United States participated in, but the one prior to that. And several of these Iranian missiles, despite Israeli denials, actually struck military installations and caused damage. And the Israeli government falsely denied this. And Jeremy Lafredo went to the West Bank and showed parts on runways and the like, at military facilities where these bombs had landed, to prove that the Israeli government was lying. And when they caught him doing that, they arrested him. And they kept him in detention. This is an American citizen for over 48 hours. And he came on our show and described the unbelievably abusive treatment, including hearing people screaming from being beaten in cells next to him, being denied access to a lawyer, purposely being subjected to psychologically terrifying conditions, being denied food and water for long periods of time. And I remember thinking, wow, if this is what they do to an American citizen, a citizen of a country that pays their entire military and subsidizes their monstrous society, just imagine what they must do to non-Americans, let alone to Palestinians, whom they absolutely regard as subhuman animals. And of course, that just confirms all the reports about what is taking place inside these dungeons. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.